Good evening and welcome back to Night Court. I am the Honorable Judge D. Litt, and I want to say welcome back to the Lit Lane Jury Box. Once you drop down in the chat and get to communicating and participating in our little neck of the woods and our community, this is the Lit Lane Jury Box. So please don't be scared. Drop down, become a part of the conversation at your own risk. Hello, M. Renee. M. Renee has a letter to me. Dear Judge D. Litt, one, I just want you to know that even though this may be a good trial/case, I am not happy with you cutting the Murdoch case. That's it. That's all. Thank you, and I will see you at 7 p.m. I would like to say thank you for your support. Thank you for your open critique and concerns. I hear you. It is with great. Hello, Dr. Sophie, PhD. Welcome to the Little Lady Jury Box. Hey, Winter. Yeah. What you want? What you want? We here to protest. Y'all, we have started covering the Murdoch murder trial, which is a complicated trial, a long trial. And a trial that don't show the evidence on the trial. It just seemed to me like, y'all know these numbers over here don't get a lot of numbers, and we do it, and we a community, and we come and we just rock and roll as we take our time and be patient and grow. But literally a couple of times I saw the chat go from 17 to like 8. Literally, I saw some of the regular Lit Lane jurors not participating. And for that trial to be so long, I just did not. I just felt like I just felt like I said, okay, I cannot. I just had to make a judicial decision. I had to make a decision, and I had to execute. Thank you, Dr. Soper. Went to say you allowed us to pick and snatched it from us because you was not on top of it. Boo! It wasn't because I wasn't on top of it. It's because it wasn't because I wasn't on top of it. But I wasn't on top of it. Maybe you have a point. I look at it that way. But it feels like I do better with the trials that I kind of have a little bit of familiarity, just a little bit on, and therefore I know how to move it on, what the best part's going to be with a feel for it. That might be true. I am sorry. And I thought about that. I say, well, I did let them pick. And I say, Demetri, what you going to do about that? And then I said to myself, oh, Demetri, you might not need to let them pick no more. I did say that. I was like, maybe you shouldn't let them pick no more. Or I gotta make it like when you pick from certain ones. So I'm sorry, y'all. Please forgive me, but I know y'all will become interested in this trial. So we are getting into Georgia versus Miles Bryant. Okay, I find this trial to be very riveting, right? And I said, what went wrong? Young black police officer on trial for kidnapping and unaliving a 16-year-old high school. What went wrong? He got his whole life ahead of him. He done the right things for most of all his little young life. He did the ROTC. He went to police academy. He on the right track to do the right things for the right reason. What went wrong? This was a case that you had to go to the start of their story, not the murder trial. That would have kept everybody engaged up to the final murder trial. Right. And that's what maybe, and Renee, let me duck. Hey, you got to chill. It was. And either, okay, Dr. Sophie, and either it felt like I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't going the right direction. And then it was going to be like so long for it not to be going the right direction. Hey, Kathy Smith, good evening. Good to see you. Right on time. So let's start this off. This is a new trial. It is a trial of the state of Georgia versus Miles Bryant. I did. I watched the thing and everything. Ooh, y'all, fuss. Y'all get it out your system. Okay? Y'all got it out your system. Now, the background information. To the left is police officer, he's 23 years old, police officer Miles Bryant. To the right, 16-year-old Susanna Gonzalez, I believe. 16-year-old Susanna Gonzalez left home and didn't come back one evening. Between a couple of blocks from her house to her friend's house, she disappeared. You can imagine when they started putting the eye on a police officer, all hell broke loose. So I want to start off so we can get a timeline and information regarding the background, like some different information about the case from a press conference, which was very interesting to me how they handled this. Another Georgia case.
J.D. McClure, the Gwinnett County Police Department. Today I'll be providing an update as it relates to the death of 16-year-old Susanna Morales of Norcross, Georgia. Before I begin, I'd like to extend my condolences to the family, friends, and former classmates of Susanna on behalf of the Gwinnett County Police Department. Additionally, I will take you through a brief timeline of events and then provide for you an update as to where we are.
Welcome back, Pretty Glow.
On July 26th at approximately 6 p.m., we know that Susanna Morales left her home on Santa Ana Drive in Norcross.
Morales, I say Gonzalez.
A short distance to the Sterling Glen apartment complex on Indian Trail Road. There, she met with her friend for about 4 hours, and at about 10 o'clock, she began her trek back to her house. We know that between 10 and 10:30 p.m., Susanna had an interaction with an individual and ultimately was not seen or heard from again. This case was immediately assigned to our Criminal Investigations Division, who worked diligently on this case and followed up on a number of leads and tips. However, those leads and tips did not come to fruition. We know that on February the 6th, a citizen who was walking in the area of Drowning Creek Road and Highway 316 happened upon skeletal remains.
No strikes.
The Gwinnett County Police Department sealed that crime scene, the Gwinnett County Medical Examiner took custody of those remains, and they were positively identified as having belonged to Susanna Morales. The following morning, February 7th, we brought out a large contingency of police personnel and conducted a methodical and meticulous search known as a grid search. And during that search, we located a firearm that had been reported stolen on July 27th. This is the same day that Susanna was reported missing. That firearm we traced back to a 22-year-old former Dorville police officer named Miles Bryant. Bryant then became a person of interest in our case. We continue investigating, and on February 13th, we secured warrants for concealing the death of another. Since that time, our criminal investigators have been working this case continuously, and we have reached a threshold to where these charges have now been upgraded to felony murder and kidnapping charges. I would like to thank the Gwinnett County District Attorney's Office for their assistance, along with the Dorville Police Department. And at this time, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Is it possible that Ms. Morales was raped? It was mentioned of that earlier.
There is a possibility. One of the things I really want to do now is talk about the timeline. Okay.
Here go the timeline.
Recall my earlier statement. Susanna went missing sometime between 10 and 10:30 p.m. on July 26th. Our investigation has revealed that she died,
22.
we believe, sometime between the time she was taken, between 10 and 10:30 and 2 a.m. on the morning of the 27th. You'll recall she was reported missing on the morning of July 27th at 9
2022.
a.m. So by the time she was reported missing, we have every reason to believe that Susanna was deceased.
Can you talk about the possible relationship between?
All right. So in July 26, 2022, that's when she got reported. She got reported to 26 missing. Okay, by her parent and her family. She had just left the house to go to her friend's house. They talked to her around 9:30 or so. And in between that little small window of time when she came up missing, they didn't find her body, her remains, until February of 23. Now, when they found the body and the remains, that's when they located the gun. The gun was there in the vicinity of the body, and turns out the gun had been reported stolen or missing by our defendant, Miles Bryant. So when they first issued a warrant for him, they didn't issue a warrant for the murder of Susanna. They issued a warrant for him for making false, reporting false crime about his gun being stolen. And that's what eventually got him caught up with the murder of this young girl, 16 years old, 10th grade, out in Gwinnett County in Norcross, Georgia. Okay, so this is the state of Georgia versus Miles Bryant. And you guys just kind of, I know we stopped abruptly with the murder trial, but I can assure you guys that this trial is one for the books, and it's very
She was taken between 10
very
and 10:30.
interesting. So we're gonna get started with the opening statements. Give me one moment. The opening statements are not too long, and for some reason, when they started it, it seemed like they cut off the first couple of words here. But hold on. Please hit the like, and thank y'all for joining me with this new trial. Let me take this down. Boom.
Could be a result of collision, heartbreaking, or drop phone.
Opening statements from the state.
And Kaya became concerned. What happened? As any good friend would do. So she started calling and texting Susanna. No answer.
He's remorseful.
When she looked at the Life 360, was that Susanna was no longer traveling down Singleton.
He didn't know her.
Towards her home. Instead, she was traveling at 40 miles per hour down Singleton, across Indian Trail, and onto Steve Reynolds Boulevard at 40 miles an hour. And you'll hear from the detectives, I believe her being in a vehicle at that point. Her phone and her are traveling down Steve Reynolds Road before a crash alert occurs at the intersection of Steve Reynolds Boulevard and Oak Block Trace. There's an apartment complex there. Kaya, concerned for her friend, not being able to get in touch with her, calls Rose. Have you heard from her? No. Rose calls Susanna's boyfriend. Have you heard from her? No. Nobody's heard from her. Nobody knows where she's at. You'll hear from all her friends. None of them got text messages from her. None of them received any phone calls. No calls for help, no distress, just vanished off the face of the planet after 10:29 p.m. when her phone did crash alert. And you'll hear her phone remained at that location until it died. Her phone never moved from that area, and you'll hear from everybody who canvassed, her friends, the police, everyone. Searched the entire area. Found no trace of her. They did not locate her phone. It's a busy area there on Steve Reynolds Boulevard. They did not locate her phone. They've never found it. But it died at that location. She wasn't there. And you'll hear from the detectives. They believe her phone was thrown from her vehicle at that time. going from a vehicle at that time. She did not drive. She didn't have a vehicle. She wasn't driving. She was in somebody else's vehicle. And we're going to argue to you, and you see evidence that it was the defendant's vehicle. At that point, she was in his vehicle, and her phone got thrown out of her vehicle. 16-year-old high school girl, and her phone is separated from her and stays there until it dies. That area right there on Oak Block Trace looks just like that. There are some townhomes there, Steve Reynolds Boulevard, and you'll hear from her friends who looked through the whole apartment complex, found no trace of her. Through all the roads, the woods, the rivers, the creek beds, everywhere, nothing. You'll hear from the police. There was no crash that night. No reported crash of any kind that occurred that night.
Welcome back, RIVETING Neutral.
Nobody heard from her again. Her mother, her sisters, they didn't hear from her. And it was day after day after day with absolutely no word. You'll hear about the police investigation, where they looked, what they did, trying to find Susanna. Ultimately, with absolutely zero results. Not a single lead, no messages from her, no calls from her, no text to any friends, nothing. She vanished off the face of the planet after that moment. Well, what you'll hear is that her family had to endure 196 days of no information.
It's a long ass time not to know.
4 hours of absolutely no idea where their daughter was, where their sister was. 282,240 minutes. 16,934,400 seconds. Second after second of a mother having no idea where her child is. Not knowing what happened to her, where she went, who took her, what happened to her. Terror for that family. Second after second after second. Until February 6th of 2023. On February 6th of 2023, what you're going to hear is that a man named Matthew Gilbert was driving down Highway 316 and pulled off on the side of Highway 316. He saw this trail that is right off the side of Highway 316. At that time, it was February, it was winter, there were no leaves on the trees, and it was pretty obvious like this. But
They're going to be showing the pictures. I don't know why they're not showing them now.
This area here is completely wooded. You can't even see the pathway, but in February, he was able to see the pathway. And it's a small little path. It's not even a road, it's just a pathway. And he had a little off-road vehicle, and he decided to go off-roading on the side of 316. And he drove down, got out of his vehicle, was walking around, when he stumbled across something that he'll never forget. In this area, right here on the side of Highway 316. This is in Decula, Georgia. The intersection right here, kind of in the middle of this map, is Drowning Creek Road. To the right is towards Athens, and towards the left is back towards Lawrenceville. But in the middle of the woods, on that day, Mr. Gilbert stumbled across human remains.
Miss Steph.
And at that moment, he stopped. You'll hear from him. He'll tell you what he found. And he called the police. I found a human remains in the woods. It's unusual to find human remains in the woods. And he called the police, and the police showed up.
Skeleton on
And they
that
started
picture?
to investigate. The medical examiner came out. Crime scene specialist came out. Detectives came out. And they started looking into who could this possibly be. And you're going to hear that very quickly they identified these remains as that of Susanna Morales. You're going to hear from the medical examiner, compared to dental records. You're going to hear that right there with these remains, or skeletal remains, they found her fingernails. still with the black nail polish she had painted on. She had hair that was dark on the top, blonde hair on the bottom. They found her hair still there. But what you're going to hear is that they found nothing else. They found no flesh, no tissue. She was completely skeletal. There was no forensic evidence to really pull from it because it had been 196 days since she went missing. She wasn't buried. Her body was dumped there in the woods. And you're going to hear very importantly that she was naked. Her body was left there in the woods, completely naked. They found absolutely not one shred of any fiber, any clothing, any socks.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
any
that.
Pants, any shirt, any undergarments, anything. Her body was dumped naked in the woods. What is significant, the medical examiner who's responsible for performing autopsies conducted what she could of an autopsy on the remains of Susanna and found no cause of death. What does that mean? There was no obvious signs of trauma to her skeleton. Right? There was no obvious bullet wound because there's no flesh. There's nothing to look at. She just was able to look at the bones, didn't see anything on the bones that said it was a gunshot or broken bones. They found almost all of her skeleton. They found somewhere between 95 and 100% of her skeleton. There were a few bones missing. One including the hyoid bone, which is in your neck. It can be evidence of strangulation. You're going to hear from the medical examiner about how she performed the autopsy. And at the end, you're going to hear that she could not conclude an obvious cause of death for Susanna Morales. And that is going to be a significant issue that the defense is going to argue to. That you cannot find Mr. Bryant guilty of murder because there is no cause of death. I think at the end of the case, you'll be convinced differently. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But once the police identified her remains, they begin an investigation. How did she end up here? What you'll hear is that nobody believed that she walked herself out into the woods naked and died there, but that it was at the hands of somebody else. That it was criminal, that it was homicide, that it was murder. And they begin to investigate who is responsible. The very first piece of evidence was found the next day, February 7th of 2023. When the Grand County Police Department, what you'll hear is that night, they found her body very late in the day. And it became dark very quickly in February. So they secured the scene, they collected what they could, left police officers there to secure the scene, came back the next morning to continue searching. And the next morning, they located this. This is a Glock 19 9mm handgun. And underneath the barrel is an attached flashlight on this weapon. And when they found this weapon very, very close to Susanna's body, they became immediately suspicious. There's a gun in the woods near this girl's body. And so they wanted to know who it belonged to. And they found that it was registered to the defendant, Miles Bryant. So they began to do a little more looking. How could this gun end up out there? What they found, and what you'll hear, is that the following morning after she went missing, July 27th of 2022, the defendant called the Gwinnett County Police Department to report that gun stolen. Same morning. He claimed that his vehicle had been broken into and that his weapon was stolen from the vehicle. He also claimed that his wallet was stolen from the vehicle at that time. You're going to get to hear that. You'll hear from the officer who took the report. And I want you to remember one important thing. He said to that officer, this is one police officer to another. At the time, he's a police officer. He tells the responding Gwinnett County Police Department officers, just put it on GCIC is stolen. GCIC is the Georgia Crime Information Center, where people list stolen things for the police to know. Just you can put it on there, but I don't want detectives involved. I don't want detectives involved. You don't need to worry about that. To an officer. You'll hear from that officer, Officer Merkley. I'll tell you that was very unusual, especially for a police officer to not want his gun found when it could be picked up and used by somebody else or stolen and used in some other crime, to not want detectives involved in finding it. You're going to hear about cellular tower mapping. You'll hear from Detective Carter. She's going to be the last witness to testify. She's going to talk to you about a lot of different things. But one of the things that she's going to talk to you about is that in her investigation, once they found his gun had been stolen, they thought, well, maybe whoever stole his gun kidnapped her and murdered her. It's reasonable. He lives in the apartment complex where she disappeared from, and he reported his gun stolen the next morning. That would have been a reasonable thought to have. So they continue to investigate and obtain the defendant's cellular phone records. He has two phones. One is a personal phone. The other one is a work phone that is issued by the city of Doraville for his police business. And what you'll see, you'll hear from an expert in cellular tower mapping, Investigator Wilbanks, who will tell you and show you his mapping. This is not his mapping, but he will show you that the defendant's personal phone was located in the woods right next to Susanna's body within 2 hours of her disappearance. Not just that, the defendant's work phone was also located in the woods right after Susanna's disappearance. This location is over 22 miles from the defendant's home and from where Susanna lived. In the middle of the woods in Tequila, Georgia, nowhere near Norcross. And you'll hear from approximately 12:45 a.m. on the morning of July 27th all the way through 2 a.m. The defendant is right there. He'll give an interview that you'll hear over 3 hours to the police where he discusses this. But his phones place him right next to Susanna's body the night she went missing within a few hours. Putting both him with Susanna and his gun in the woods the night she went missing. It was at that point the police realized that he was not telling the truth about the stolen gun report, because he was right where his gun went missing. And what were the chances that some random person stole his gun
Welcome back.
and kidnapped the individual, Ms. Morales, who disappeared from his apartment complex where he was at, and then he ends up in the exact same location as both her body and the gun?
It's a lot. It's a lot. So they was at the same apartments. Okay.
At that point, they significantly suspected him. Ultimately, the defendant is charged with malice murder. That is the count of malice murder. What does it mean? It means he caused the death of Susanna Morales with malice in an unknown manner. In many cases, we have gunshot wounds, we have stab wounds, we have injuries that we can point to and say, this is exactly how it happened. This is precisely how the death occurred. And in some cases, we don't. In this case, and in many murder cases, you'll hear, again, cause of death is not a material element. It does not have to be proven. And we can think of some examples about why that might be true. Any case where we never recover a body, how would you ever prove the cause of death? This is a significant issue. We charged him in a manner unknown because she doesn't have a cause of death. But what we have to prove is that he was responsible. He did it with malice. What is malice? It doesn't mean hatred. It doesn't mean premeditation. Many states have premeditated murder. first-degree homicide, things like that we're used to hearing on television programs and things. Georgia doesn't have that. We have malice murder and we have felony murder. And in malice murder, it requires that you do it with malice. So what does that mean? That means the intent. You intended to kill this person. That's what it means. The judge will give you a full charge on what malice means at the conclusion of the trial. He is also charged in count 2 with felony murder. Felony murder is defined as causing the death of Susana Morales while committing another felony and in an unknown manner. Felony murder
S.N.
is the idea that if you are committing a felony and in the commission of that felony somebody dies, you are guilty of felony murder. And it can happen in numerous situations. It is a very broad statute. In this case, we are alleging that she died in the commission of him kidnapping her and taking her as she was walking home.
More than that.
And ending up in the woods.
More than that.
We also charged him with kidnapping, which means to abduct and steal her away without authority to do so. Now, he is a police officer, but you will hear no evidence of him arresting her, no evidence of him lawfully detaining her, no evidence of him doing anything related to the actual furtherance of the duties. Held her against her will, which caused her bodily injury. The bodily injury portion of this is pretty obvious. She's dead. Also, he is charged with criminal attempt to commit rape. Attempted to commit rape.
That's what it was about.
All it requires is a substantial step. We're not alleging to you that he did in fact follow through and rape her, just that he attempted to do so. In this case, all that is required in order to prove attempted rape is that he had both the intent to do that and he took a substantial step towards doing it. Right? Doesn't mean that he had to follow through all the way, but that he intended to. And you're going to hear things like the fact that she's found completely naked there in the woods. No other explanation for that. You're going to hear that less than 24 hours after the defendant kidnapped and murdered Susana Morales, he was back on shift working as a Doraville Police Department officer. Went into a Quick Trip gas station located in Doraville, Georgia. There behind the counter was a young woman working the counter. She knew the defendant. He would come in there regularly as a police officer on shift in Doraville. He asked to use her phone. He said that his bank account, he couldn't access his bank account on his phone. And so he borrowed her phone. But he didn't.
That's weird.
He went into her hidden folders on her phone. He selected a pornographic video that she had made of herself, and he sent it to himself. He texted himself her intimate video on her phone. He then deleted the message from her phone to hide any evidence of doing it. Less than 24 hours. This is around 10:30 p.m., July 27th. That night. You're going to hear other evidence. And lastly, you're going to hear a false report, or receive a false report of a crime. This is him falsely reporting to Officer Murphy that his gun was stolen, when he knew very well that it wasn't. And part of that evidence that you'll hear is that right before placing the Gwinnett County Police Department called to report his gun stolen, which occurred around 10:30 in the morning on July 27th, he went back to the scene where Susana's body was found. Went back out to the woods, all the way from Norwalk. He got up that morning and he drove his car all the way back to 22 miles.
Probably looking for that gun.
His phone was placed in there at around 9:30 in the morning on July 27th. And what you'll hear is that likely he went back to look for his gun that he had dropped in the woods. That gun had a flashlight. At 12 at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch black in the middle of the woods. And for whatever reason, he dropped or lost his weapon and went back to look for it. Not finding it, he returned and called the Gwinnett County Police Department to report it stolen. Didn't want detectives involved, but to report it stolen. you're going to hear a charge. The judge already read out to you. Reasonable doubt. What is it? What does it mean? The state has a burden, which I gladly accept, of proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt. That he did every one of these things beyond a reasonable doubt. Sometimes it's great to define this in terms of what it's not. And the judge already told you, it is not all doubt. It is not to a mathematical certainty. It is reasonable doubt. Right? The judge used a word that I think embodies this concept the best. It's common sense. You all come in with common sense. You all have common sense. And you are being asked to use your common sense about what happened in this case. You view the evidence to use your common sense about what occurred in this case. I'm certain that you will hear arguments that, well, we just don't know how she died. We don't know the cause of death, so you can't say that it's murder. Well, when you look at all of the evidence at the conclusion of the case, when you see all of the evidence and everything that happened, I'm going to ask you to use your common sense and conclude that he did these things. And when we talk about another concept, direct evidence and circumstantial evidence.
Your Honor, I hate to interrupt, but at this point, he's explaining the law, which I do not think is proper in opening. Opening is to tell the jury what you expect the evidence to show.
Mr. Delphin? Respond.
Judge, I think that I'm permitted a little latitude to explain a few concepts that are going to be important for them to understand for the trial.
I like this judge, y'all.
I'm going to ask you to move on from this and I'll explain that to them. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
What happened to Susanna? You are going to be faced with that question. You are going to have to battle amongst yourselves about what happened to her and what proof is there of it. Could it have been an accident? Could she have taken something and overdosed on something and died? Could there be some other explanation for what happened? Well, you don't have to wonder. You're going to hear the defendant tell you. You're going to get to watch over 3 hours of him telling you that he's never seen her before. He's never even laid eyes on her before. Doesn't know her, never seen her. You're going to hear that he had absolutely nothing to do with it. Remember, he said, I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I don't know her. I've never seen her. I have nothing to do with her. And it's just a complete coincidence that his phones are there at the scene with her, that his gun is found at the scene. This is what you're going to hear from his own mouth. And then you're going to hear that Detective Carter asked him repeatedly, was it an accident? Did she fall in her head? No. I don't have anything to do with this. She didn't. Was it an overdose? Did she take something? No. It wasn't any of those things. It wasn't any accident. It wasn't anything. That's what you're going to hear from his own mouth. On February 13th of 2023, when he was interviewed by the police. And you're going to consider that he has told the police and everybody that there is absolutely no other explanation. He didn't do any of this, and none of this was an accident, it wasn't an overdose, and nothing else happened to her. And you're ultimately going to hear that his lies, repeated lie after lie after lie after lie, for 3
Yes, he was a police
hours
officer.
of having nothing to do with this. But the truth will come out. You will see what the truth is. And my job is to convince you beyond reasonable doubt that everything he said to you in that interview is a lie. I love this quote. There is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. I expect in this trial that you are going to try and be convinced that something else happened to Susanna. This was an accident, that it was not intentional, he did not do it. Or that if he was involved in it some way, that it was an overdose. overdose because she liked to smoke marijuana. Maybe you'll hear that one time in her past, she had tried what she called acid. Months before, one time, from her friends. They'll tell you that. I'm about to call them. You'll hear them say it. Maybe you'll be trying to convince that this is something, some accident. And of course, the medical examiner might have been able to give you a much better explanation about any of the things that happened to her. If her body had ever been located before 196 days, before her flesh was gone, before all evidence was gone. But I'm going to argue to you at the end of this case that the defendant doesn't get to escape justice because he's good at committing a crime. Because he's good at covering his tracks. He doesn't get to escape justice. And in conclusion, I'm going to ask you to come back and find the defendant guilty of malice murder, guilty of felony murder, guilty of kidnapping, guilty of criminal attempt to commit rape, and guilty of false report of crime.
Does the defense wish to make?
So we're going to pause right here. So we just heard from the state, right? And I think the state did a good job, right? As far as laying out what the case going to be, what happened, who they think happened, why they think it. This is what we're going to prove. Tweety just asked a great question. Wait, I don't understand. Why would he do that? He doesn't know the girl. He's a police officer, and he unalived her. And they have his murder weapon? Yes, 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 and yes. And that's what, to me, makes this a fascinating trial. That's why I wrote here as an introduction, what went wrong? What went wrong? Young Black police officer. All through high school, we're going to find out about him doing ROTC, all that kind of stuff. You know, seemingly you got his life on track to protect and serve. What made him do this? Why did he do this? What was wrong with him? Did this stop him from being eventually being a serial killer? You know, some people take the badge in order to do more harm than good. And so now you're finna hear from the defense, okay, and see what type of defense he have. And this is going to answer the question as far as check out what the defense attorney says. Which we have seen this, I have seen this defense attorney before in Georgia.
Statement.
I don't know if we've
Yes.
seen it
Ms. Gray.
together.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Still morning, always have to double check. As the judge has told you, what is said in opening is not evidence. But I want to point out a couple of things. Every death is not a homicide. Every homicide is not malice murder, and it's not felony murder. Now, the state said that I'm gonna come up here and try to make all sorts of excuses. I'm not. At the conclusion of this trial, I'm going to come up and tell you, hold this man guilty for what he did during this time. Hold him guilty and responsible for the death of Susanna Morales, but it doesn't fall in any of those categories. It is a tragedy what happened to Susanna Morales. She's a beautiful young lady. I have spoken briefly with members of her family. They're very, very nice. As a mother, I cannot fathom the anguish that they went through. Makes me very upset at Mr. Bryant. But you don't have to like my client. And in fact, at the conclusion of this trial, you're going to think that he is the most callous, uncaring coward that you have ever seen.
Pause. I'm not going to pause no more doing the opening statements, but this is a trivia question for all of my faithful Lit Lane jury box. What trial in the last 3 or 4 trials we watched, another defense attorney used the same exact tactic about you're not going to like my client, you're going to hate my client by the time this was over. Just trying to see who's staying on their toes.
However, he is
Please
not
like.
guilty of the murder or felony murder in this particular case. What you have from the state is speculation. We found this, and we don't really know, but this is what we think happened. Particularly on the Life 360. They're not going to introduce to you any expert to explain the 360. You hear about it could have been a hard break, but no, they're speculating that it was thrown out of the car. Their whole case is based upon speculation. At the conclusion of the total trial, and you're going to hear from Miles Bryant, he's going to explain to you exactly what happened, and it is going to be supported by all of the evidence that the state is going to introduce to you. They could have done some more testing to possibly determine the cause of death. They did have hair, they did have bone marrow. They did not test any of those. You're not going to hear any evidence. You're not going to hear any evidence that she did not willingly get into his vehicle, or even that that was the only vehicle that she got into that evening. No evidence whatsoever. You saw in his presentation a video of her walking down the road. There's not going to be any video from any of the surrounding businesses to show how, the manner that she got into the vehicle. There's not going to be any evidence of an intent to rape. That simply did not happen. At the end of this case, you're going to know the full truth. Why Mr. Miles lied to the police, and why he reported his gun stolen. And that is not going to be an issue for you. We will concede that at this point. He did make a false report of his gun being stolen. His gun was not stolen. And he's going to explain to you his thinking and why he made that report. At the conclusion, you're going to see that the state's case is based upon outrage, which is warranted, but speculation. You're going to have the actual truth that is supported by all of the evidence. And I can promise you, you are going to hate that young man sitting there. But at the conclusion of this trial, as he's going to come back and ask you to return a verdict of guilty, I'm going to come back up here and tell you it is fine to hate Miles Bryant.
Welcome back,
You can
Tracy.
hate him all you want. However, I'm going to ask you to return a verdict that holds him accountable for his actions, but it's not murder, it's not felony murder, it's not kidnapping, and it's not criminal intent to commit a rape.
So what is it? If it's not any of those things, and you already saying, yes, he was with her, yes, she died, what is it? What is it? What excuse does this grown man, it don't matter if he was 20-something, she's 16. What excuse is it for this grown man to have that young girl to even be in any type of close proximity with her? Oh my God. So that's our opening statements for anyone who just came in. We are just starting this trial tonight. This is part 1, State of Georgia versus Miles Bryant, 2022, July 26th. Our victim in this case is 16-year-old Susanna Morales, 10th grade. They're in Norcross, Georgia. She left our house with her mom's permission, going to a friend's house. Never seen her again. Her body came up 196 days. Her body, nobody knew nothing about her, where she was at, where she had went. 196 days later, her body was found, skeletal remains rather, in the woods. Close to where her body was found, her skeletal remains, they located a gun. Same gun that had been reported stolen and missing from, at that time, police officer Miles Bryant, which started the investigation into him and led to him to be right now facing malice murder, and kidnapping charges. State of Georgia versus Miles Bryant. Let me just already say, if you're a mom like I'm a mom, if you just even have any compassion, some parts of this is going to just like really tug at you. The first witness is the mom, and they will have a translator for the mother, but she's the only one who uses a translator. But regardless of what language she's speaking in, I can literally feel this lady.
State ready.
Thank y'all for joining me. Make
Ready?
sure y'all tune in each night,
Okay.
7 p.m. Central Standard Time for Night Court.
July 26th of 2022.
Hold on.
Can you tell us a little bit about Susanna? And can you tell us
Her mom.
when was the last time that you saw your daughter?
¿Nos puede decir cuándo fue la última vez que usted vio a su hija?
Julio 26 del 2022.
July 26th of 2022.
Can you tell us a little bit about Susanna?
¿Nos puede decir un poco acerca de Susana?
Es muy alegre, sonriente.
Very joyful, always smiling.
How old was she when she disappeared?
¿Qué edad tenía ella cuando desapareció?
16.
16.
When was her birthday?
¿Cuándo cumplía años?
24 de junio.
June 24th.
And can you tell us about where approximately you lived at?
¿Nos puede decir dónde aproximadamente vivió usted?
Santa Ana Drive, Norcross, Georgia.
Santa Ana Drive, Norcross, Georgia.
Now, who lived there with you back in July of 2022?
¿Quién vivía con usted ahí en julio del 2022?
Solo yo, ella y mi esposo.
Just me, her, and my husband.
When you say her, do you mean Susana?
¿Significa Susana?
Sí, mi hija.
Yes, my daughter.
So,
Do you have any other children?
¿Tiene más hijos?
sí,
Yes.
Who are they?
¿Quiénes son?
Julissa y Jasmine,
Julissa and Jasmine.
How old is Julissa?
¿Qué edad tiene Julissa?
27.
27.
And does she live nearby to you?
¿Ella vive cerca a usted?
Como 20 minutos.
About 20 minutes.
And what about Jasmine? How old is she?
Jasmine, ¿qué edad tiene?
Cumplió 21.
She just turned 21.
And does she live nearby to you?
¿Ella vive cerca a usted?
Como 15 minutos.
About 15 minutes.
Where was, at the time in July of 2022, where was Susana going to school?
En ese tiempo, en julio del 2022, ¿a qué escuela asistía Susana?
En la Meadow Creek High School.
La Meadow Creek High School.
Do you remember what grade she's in?
¿Recuerdan qué año cursaba?
En el 10.
10th.
Want to,
Beautiful young girl. Beautiful. I understand it's her mom.
Your Honor, may I have the liberty to approach the witness?
Certainly.
Thank you. I'm going to show you what I have marked as State's Exhibit number 21. Do you recognize this?
Le voy a mostrar lo que he marcado como evidencia del estado número 21. ¿Usted reconoce esto?
Sí.
Yes.
And what is it?
¿Qué es?
Es la foto de sus 15.
It's her quinceañera's picture.
Is this Susana's quinceañera?
¿Es
Ya.
la quinceañera de Susana?
Ujú.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is this an accurate photograph of her quinceañera?
Es una foto verdadera de ella.
Sí.
Yes.
Judge, I've moved to admit State's Exhibit number 21 and request
Yes, I
permission to
can,
publish.
No objection.
Okay, State's Exhibit 21 is admitted. with no objection.
I
and
know a
she may pop-
quinceañera is like a sweet 16, but it's for 15. The Hispanics be celebrating 15 like that. Quince. Coming to age.
Sorry, having a little trouble with the technology. Can you tell us, where was this photograph? Where was her quinceañera at?
¿Dónde fue la quinceañera de ella?
Ella escogió ir a comer tacos en el Don Pedro, un restaurante mexicano.
She chose to go eat tacos at El Don Pedro. It's a Mexican restaurant.
Okay. And what kind of things did Susana like to do? For fun.
¿Qué clase de cosas le gustaba hacer a Susana para divertirse?
Le gustaba escuchar música, tocar música, arreglarse, comer antojos.
She liked to listen to music. She liked to play music. She liked to eat. She liked to dress herself up. All that.
Okay. And I want to take a pause just for a second and ensure, since you're not speaking into the microphone, Ms. Gomez, can everybody hear appropriately? Okay, just all of a sudden.
And could you're in the seat outside the box see? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
She liked to play music. What kind of music did she play?
Le gustaba tocar música. ¿Qué clase de música le gustaba?
Le gustaba el piano y la guitarra.
She liked the piano and the guitar.
Did she sing?
¿Cantaba?
Sí.
Yes.
Did she ever record videos, things like that?
¿Alguna vez grababa videos, cosas así?
Solamente cuando estaba tocando piano. Una vez le grabó un video nomás cuando estaba tocando guitarra.
Only when she played the piano, and only one video was recorded when she played the guitar.
How was your relationship with Susana?
¿Cómo era su relación con Susana?
She about to break
Buena.
Good.
When would Susana go and ever hang out with her friends?
¿Susana en algún momento iba y pasaba tiempo con las amigas?
Sí.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about her friends. Who was in her friend group?
Díganos un poco acerca de las amigas de ellas. ¿Quién estaba en el grupo de ellas?
La más cercana era Esmeralda y Kaya.
The closest ones were Esmeralda and Kaya.
And how often would she, if you know, how often would she see those friends?
¿Y qué tan seguido, si usted sabe, qué tan seguido ella visitaba a sus amigas?
A veces, 2 veces por semana, a veces casi siempre estaban. Cuando Esmeralda a veces no estaba en mi casa, estaba en la casa de ella, pero casi siempre se visitaban.
Usually 2 times a week, but sometimes if Esmeralda was not at our house, she was at her house, but they would always visit each other.
Did Susana have a phone?
¿Susana tiene celular?
Sí.
Yes.
How much time did she spend on her phone?
¿Cuánto tiempo pasaba en el celular?
A veces bastante, pero a ella le gustaba mucho leer.
Sometimes a lot, but she liked to read a lot.
Okay. And it seems like a lot of teenagers seem to be attached to their phones and carry their phones all the time, everywhere. Was Susana like that?
Parece que muchos de los jóvenes ahora están muy apegados a su celular y llevan su celular a todas partes. ¿Susana era así?
Sí.
Yes.
Did you ever see her without her phone?
¿En algún momento la vio sin el celular?
A veces cuando estaba tocando guitarra o estaba leyendo.
Yes, sometimes when she was playing her guitar or reading.
Okay. So if something else was in her hands and she couldn't have the phone, would she put it down?
Entonces,
Yeah.
si tenía otra cosa en sus manos, ponía el celular a un lado.
Sí.
Yes.
Did Susana work?
¿Susana trabajaba?
Sí.
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about what she did for work?
¿Puede decir un poco acerca de qué hacía ella para el trabajo?
Ella tomaba orden,
She would take orders.
entregaba comida. En el McDonald's estaba conmigo.
Pardon?
Trabajaba conmigo en el McDonald's.
She would deliver food. She worked with me at McDonald's.
Okay. So, and What was her job at McDonald's?
¿Cuál era el trabajo de ella en McDonald's?
Tomar orden.
Take orders.
Okay, did she work in the drive-through or at the front?
¿Trabajaba en el drive-thru o al frente?
Diferente veces en retro, veces.
Different. Sometimes in the drive-thru, other times inside.
Did you get her the job working with you?
¿Usted le consiguió trabajo para trabajar con usted?
Sí,
Yes.
And how long had she done that job with you, worked at McDonald's?
¿Cuánto tiempo llevaba ella haciendo ese trabajo con usted en McDonald's?
apenas empezaba.
She had just started.
And you said just started, is it days, weeks, months, do you know?
Dice que apenas había empezado días, semanas, meses.
Como unos
¿sabe?
meses, unos 6 meses.
Months, maybe 6 months.
Would you guys ride together to work, or did she get herself to work, or how did she get to work?
¿Ustedes se iban juntas para el trabajo o ella llegaba al trabajo? ¿Cómo llegaba ella al trabajo?
No, se iba conmigo.
She would come with me.
Did you know any of Susanna's friends named Kelly or Alyssa?
¿Usted conoció alguna de las amigas de Susana que se llamaban Kelly o Alisa?
No las conozco. A Kelly la había visto un par de veces, pero a Lisa no.
I didn't. Kelly I saw a few times, but Alyssa no.
Okay. And so, did you had met Kelly before?
¿Usted había conocido a Kelly anteriormente?
Sí.
And did Susanna spend time with or hang out with Kelly?
¿Susana pasaba tiempo o se juntaba con Kelly?
No.
No.
And do you know why that was?
¿Sabe por qué era eso?
Yo no la dejaba.
I wouldn't
She ain't
allow
like
her
Kelly.
Why wouldn't you allow her to?
¿Por qué no le se lo permitía?
Porque a uno como padre, como madre, mira uno las amistades para los hijos.
Because as a parent or as a mother, you see what type of friends you want
Okay,
for
Miss
your
Steph.
children.
Okay. Did you not approve of her friendship with Kelly?
¿Usted no aprobaba de la amistad entre ella y Kelly?
No mucho.
Not very much.
And did you ever allow her? Let me strike that and ask it a different way. Did you tell her she could not go out and hang out with Kelly?
¿Usted le dijo que ella no podía salir y pasar tiempo con Kelly?
Solo le dije una vez que no me gustaba.
I only told her once that I didn't like her.
Y ya nunca me dijo que iba para allá.
No, she never told me she was going to head that way.
On the night that this happened?
¿La noche que eso sucedió?
No, ella nunca me dijo. Ella dijo que iba con Esmeralda.
No, she never said it to me. She said she was going to Esmeralda's.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about that night.
So her mom and them thought that she was going to Esmeralda's, but she wasn't. She was going to Kelly's house. Her mama didn't like Kelly. In case y'all needed a translator to the translator, okay?
Night, July 26th. Can you tell the jury about that whole day? What was going on that day, earlier in the day?
Quiero hablar con usted un poco acerca de ese día, del 26 de julio. ¿Le puede decir al jurado qué sucedió durante todo ese día?
Durante el día estuvimos juntas trabajando.
During the day we were together working.
Cuando llegamos del trabajo como a las 4,
When we arrived home around 4,
ella se metió a bañar, yo me metí a cocinar ese día.
she went to take a shower and I went to cook.
Yo hice pescado ese día y
That day I cooked fish.
ella me dice que no quería pescado, que su amiga Esme la había invitado a comer alitas a su casa.
She told me she did not want fish. She told me that her friend Esmeralda had invited her to her house to eat wings.
And how far from your house is Esmeralda's house?
¿Qué tan lejos está su casa de la casa de Esmeralda?
Como 6 minutos.
About 6 minutes.
Is it 6 minutes if you're walking or driving?
Caminando.
6 minutos y va caminando o manejando?
Caminando.
Walking.
All right. And when Susanna told you that she wanted to go to Esmeralda's house, did you let her do that?
Susana le dijo que quería ir a la casa de Esmeralda. ¿Usted se lo permitió?
Sí.
Yes.
And how did, approximately what time did Susanna leave to go to Esmeralda's house?
¿Aproximadamente a qué hora salió Susana para ir a la casa de Esmeralda?
A las 6.
At 6.
And did she walk? Did she drive? Did somebody pick her up?
Ella manejó, caminó, alguien la
Caminó.
recogió.
Caminó.
She walked.
Did you see her leave?
Sí.
Yes.
And I can hear you whenever you say that, but please make sure you speak out loud so that the court reporter can take her.
Okay.
Was that moment as she walked away from your house, was that the last time that you ever saw your daughter?
Ese momento, a medida que ella salía de su casa caminando, ¿fue la última vez que usted vio a su hija?
Sí.
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what happened throughout the night?
¿Me puedes decir qué pasó durante la noche?
Después de que se fue Susana, como a los minutos después le llamé para ver si había llegado.
After Susana left, a few minutes later, I called her to see if she had arrived.
And
Al no contestó, le mandé un texto para preguntarle y me dijo que sí, que está.
Since she did not answer, I texted her and she replied yes, that she had arrived.
what time, if you remember, did you call or text her?
¿A qué hora, si recuerda, la llamó o le mandó el mensaje?
Pues luego, después de que después de unos 10 minutos pensando, tanteando la distancia que ya llegó ya.
It was after about 10 minutes. I was calculating the distance that she had to walk.
After she responded and texted you back, what did you try to contact her again at any point that night?
Después de que ella le respondió, esa noche, ¿usted trató de contactarse con ella después de eso, en algún otro momento?
Sí, como a las 9:40 le llamé para ir por ella.
Yes, around 9:40 I called her so I could pick her up.
And around 9:40 you called her, is that what you said?
Alrededor de las 9:40 ¿usted la llamó?
Sí.
Yes.
Did you talk to her?
¿Habló con ella?
No, ya no me contestó.
No, she did not answer.
And what did you do at that point?
¿Qué hizo usted en ese momento?
Le llamé varias veces.
I called and called several times.
Did you ever hear any phone calls or text messages back from Susana?
¿Alguna vez en algún momento escuchó una llamada o mensajes de texto de regreso de Susana?
Nunca más.
Never again.
When you tell the jury what was going through your mind once you weren't hearing back from Susana.
Dígale al jurado qué estaba pasando por su mente cuando usted ya no supo más de Susana.
Yo llamé a su amiga Esmeralda.
I called her friend Esmeralda.
No me contestó, entonces llamé a su mamá.
She didn't answer, so I called her mom.
You called Esmeralda's mom?
¿La mamá Esmeralda?
Sí,
Yes.
Okay. And did she answer?
¿Y ella le respondió?
sí.
Yes.
And what happened?
¿Qué pasó?
Me dijo que nunca llegó Susana ahí.
She said Susana never arrived there.
And had you believed that that whole time that Susana had been at Esmeralda's house?
¿Usted creía que todo ese tiempo Susana había estado en la casa de Esmeralda?
Sí.
Yes.
And once you found out that she wasn't, what did you think?
Cuando usted se dio cuenta que no había sido así, ¿qué pensó?
Pensé que vino a casa de otra amiga, llamé a Kaya.
Maybe I thought that maybe she
Pero
went
ya
to,
estaba anoche y ya no me contestó porque tengo el teléfono de la mamá de Kaya, pero no me contestaron porque ya estaba de noche.
I thought that maybe she went to Kaya's house, so I called her. She did not answer, so I called her mom because I have her number, but they did not answer because it was late at night.
At what point did you think that something bad had happened?
¿En qué punto, en qué momento pensó usted que algo malo había sucedido?
Después de que no me contestaba, yo pensé que algo le había sucedido porque ella siempre...
After she didn't answer, I thought something had happened because she always,
Aunque ella su teléfono está apagado, me llamaba del teléfono de su familia.
even if her phone was off, she would call me from her friends' phones.
And you received no phone calls or text messages from her?
Usted no recibió ni llamadas ni mensajes de texto de ella.
Nada.
Nothing.
After you tried talking to Kaya, you tried calling and she didn't answer, what did you do?
Después de que usted trató de hablar con Kaya, de que trató de llamarla y no respondió, ¿qué hizo?
Estaba preocupada y yo no sabía ni el teléfono de su novio, no lo sabía.
I was worried. I didn't know her boyfriend's number. I didn't know it.
Pero esa misma noche Esmeralda me dio el teléfono de él, le llamé, pero tampoco sabía de él.
But that same night, Esmeralda gave me his number, and I called him, but he did not know anything.
Okay. So after talking to Esmeralda, you contacted Susanna's boyfriend?
Entonces, después de hablar con Esmeralda, ¿usted contactó el novio de Susana?
Sí.
Yes.
And he said he didn't know where she was?
¿Y él le dijo que no sabía dónde estaba ella?
Sí, él dijo que no sabía.
Yes, he said he did not know.
And that whole night, did you receive any information about where Susanna had gone?
Durante esa noche, ¿usted recibió alguna información acerca de dónde había ido Susana?
No.
No.
Did you, that night, after she didn't come home, did you go look for her?
Esa noche, después de que ella no regresó a casa, ¿usted fue a buscarla?
Yo fui, pero ya estaba anoche, no. Ya fui como a las 6 de la mañana el segundo día a la casa de unas amigas de ella del trabajo.
I did, but it was late at night, so I went the next morning around 6 a.m. I went to some of her friends from work to their house.
Okay. That kind of all night long, did you sleep at all, or were you awake all night?
Durante esa noche, ¿usted durmió? En algún momento estuvo despierta toda la noche.
No pude dormir.
I was not able to sleep.
Before this, had Susanna ever not come home or not told you where she was?
Antes de esto, Susana en algún momento no había regresado a casa o nunca le había dicho dónde estaba?
Nunca.
Never.
Sometimes teenagers don't get along with their parents and they argue. Did Susanna ever not come home because you two were arguing about things?
Susana en algún momento no regresó a casa porque ustedes dos estaban discutiendo acerca de cosas?
No.
No.
Did she ever run away from home where you didn't know where she was at?
¿Ella en algún momento huyó de casa al punto de usted no saber dónde estaba ella?
No.
No.
When she didn't call and she didn't text you that night and you didn't know where she was that out of character for her?
Cuando usted no sabía dónde estaba ella, ya no la llamó ni le mandó un mensaje, ¿eso estaba fuera del carácter de ella?
Ella que estuviera molesta o la regañara yo, siempre ella me contestaba o en texto o me contestaba.
Every time, even if she was mad at me or if I would get on to her, she would always answer, or if I texted her, she would reply.
Had Susanna ever been in trouble with you before?
No.
No.
Ella era una buena niña. Como todas niñas, a veces uno los regaña porque uno no quiere que salgan o algo se molestan.
She was a good girl. You know, sometimes you would get onto them for anything, and like any other girl, she would get upset.
Like any teenager, they don't always listen.
Como cualquier otro joven, no siempre escuchan.
Sí.
Yes.
What kinds of things would you do if Susanna got in trouble? Would you take her phone away from her?
¿Qué clase de cosas hacía usted si Susana se metía en problemas? ¿Usted le quitaba el teléfono?
Sí, le quitaba el teléfono, la computadora y no la dejaba ir con sus amigos.
Yes, I would take her phone away, her computer, and I would not allow her to go see her friends.
And I assume, but I want to know from you, she didn't like that when you would do that, right?
Y asumo, pero lo quiero escuchar de parte suya. A ella no le gustaba cuando usted hacía eso, ¿correcto?
No.
No.
But even when you would take her phone away, take her computer away, or not let her go see friends, did she always let you know where she was at and talk to you, things like that?
Inclusive cuando usted le quitaba el celular o el computador o no le permitía ir a ver a sus amigas, ella siempre le decía dónde estaba y cosas así.
No salía porque pues estaba en la casa.
She wouldn't go out because she was at home.
I understand. Okay. At some point, did you decide to contact the police about Susanna not coming home?
¿En algún momento usted decidió contactar a la policía porque Susana no llegó a casa?
Sí.
Yes.
And can you tell the jury just a little bit about when that happened?
¿Le puede decir al jurado un poquito acerca de cuándo sucedió eso?
Llamamos a la policía, fue el día siguiente.
That we called the police, it was the next day.
Do you remember around what time?
¿A qué horas más o menos?
Como las 9.
Around 9
In the morning?
de la mañana. Yes.
Did the police come and talk to you?
¿La policía vino a hablar con usted?
Sí.
Yes.
And when did the police do anything at that moment when they came out to look for her?
¿La policía hizo algo en ese momento cuando llegaron ahí? ¿Hicieron algo como buscarla?
Me dijeron que iban a esperar 78 horas, 48 horas por ahí, no me recuerdo.
They said they were going to wait 78 hours, 48 hours, somewhere around there. I don't remember.
Okay. And wait, did they say you were going to wait for what?
¿Qué iban a esperar? ¿Esperar qué?
Para poder hacer un reporte, para poderla poner como desaparecida.
To be able to file a report, to be able to do it as a missing person.
You mentioned a moment ago that you went and looked for her around 6 in the morning.
¿Usted mencionó hace un momento que usted salió a buscarla alrededor de las 6 de la mañana?
Sí, yo
Yes.
salí.
I went out.
Tell the jury where all you went to look for her.
Dígale al jurado dónde fue a buscarla.
Allí, no me recuerdo exactamente, pero es por la misma isleta donde viven unas compañeras de trabajo que a veces ellas también se juntaban.
I don't remember exactly, but it was around Singleton Road where some of my coworkers also live around there and they sometimes hung out.
Okay. And after going to those locations, did you find any information about where Susanna was?
Y después de ir a varios lugares, ¿usted tuvo alguna información acerca de dónde estaba Susana?
No, hasta ese momento no.
Not until that time, no.
After you made the police report, did you and your family go looking and searching for Susanna in other places?
Después de que usted hizo ese reporte, ¿usted y su familia salieron a buscar a Susana en otros lugares?
Sí, la buscamos por toda la área de donde estaba su localización de teléfono, por los por el área de la high school, por el monte, todo eso.
Yes, we went out to look for her where her phone said she was around the high school, the woods.
Okay. And did you find any sort of evidence of Susanna?
¿Usted encontró algún tipo de evidencia de ella, de Susana?
La única evidencia que encontramos fue cuando iba de camino a casa del video que conseguimos.
The only evidence we found was of the video showing her walking home. We were able to get that.
Okay. You found that one video, did you ask other places for video surveillance?
¿Usted encontró ese video? ¿Le pidió
It was on top of it.
para que le entregaran videos de vigilancia?
Sí, pero no quisieron. Tenía que ser la policía que se los pidiera.
Yes, but they did not want to. It had to be the police to ask for them.
And how many times, just if you can give me a estimate, how many times did you go out and look for Susanna?
¿Y cuántas veces? Solo se me puede dar un estimado. ¿Cuántas veces salió usted a buscar a Susana?
Todos los días, todas las noches, durante 7 meses.
Every day, every night during for 7 months.
Did you ever find any sign of what happened to Susanna after she disappeared?
¿Alguna vez encontró alguna señal de lo que le había pasado a Susana después de que desapareció?
Solo llamadas que nos decían que
No.
la miraban y íbamos nosotros.
No, only phone calls that we received of people telling us they saw her and we would go.
Okay. So you would get phone calls from people with a tip and you would go look in those locations?
Entonces, ¿usted recibía llamadas con señales de personas y usted iba a esas locaciones?
Sí.
Yes.
Did you ever find any evidence, any trace of Susanna in any of those places?
¿Alguna vez encontró evidencia, algún caso de Susana en esos lugares?
Nunca.
Never.
prior to Susanna's disappearance, did you ever know that she would smoke marijuana?
Antes de la desaparición de Susana, ¿usted tenía conocimiento de que ella fumaba marihuana?
Sí,
Yes.
And how did you find out that she smoked marijuana?
¿Cómo se dio usted cuenta de que ella fumaba marihuana?
porque me llamaron de la escuela.
So I got a phone call from the school.
And do you remember when that was?
¿Recuerda cuándo fue eso?
No,
No.
How do you know how often that Susanna would smoke marijuana?
¿Sabe qué tan seguido Susana fumaba marihuana?
solo cuando iba con sus amigas, que yo sepa. Una vez en mi casa la encontré en su zapato, escondida, pero yo la tiré y le dije, la regañé. Cuando,
Only when she would go see her friends, and she did it once at home, and then another time I found it in her shoe hidden. I got onto her for that.
You talked to Susanna about it,
¿Acerca de eso?
sí,
Yes.
and you said she would smoke it with her friends. Would that be the friends that you didn't want her to hang out with?
Usted dice que ella lo fumaba con sus amigas. ¿Eran las amigas con las que usted no quería que ella pasara tiempo?
sí, porque yo después de eso yo vi videos y fotos.
Yes, because after that I saw videos and pictures.
Okay. And did you ever hear Susanna tell you, or anybody hear Susanna tell you that she did anything else other than marijuana?
¿Usted alguna vez escuchó a Susana o alguna otra persona decir que Susana fumaba cualquier otra cosa que no fuera marihuana? No.
Did you continue to talk to the police department after Susanna disappeared?
¿Usted continuó hablando con el departamento de la policía después de que Susana desapareció?
Sí,
Yes.
Who would you talk to from the police department?
¿Con quién hablaba usted ahí en el departamento de policía?
con el sargento,
Sergeant.
Sargent,
I don't remember his name.
Did you speak to Sergeant Biggers?
yes,
Sergeant Biggers?
sí,
Yes.
I know sometimes the names are hard.
Yeah. Los nombres son difíciles.
And
What
how
about Miss
often
Steph,
do you
her
talk to
smoking
him?
weed?
¿Qué tan seguido habla usted con él?
a veces todos los días le mandaba mensajes, yo o Jasmine, porque yo no sé escribir en inglés.
Almost every day I would send him text messages, either me or Jasmine, because I don't know how to write in English,
A ver si sabía alguna noticia o algo.
to see if he had any news or anything.
And so from the time that Susanna was
I guess they just tried. I think that the state just trying to put it out there because the defense is going to try to say that it could have been a overdose or something like that. This is she the first witness for the state, the victim's mother. So I think because he said in the opening that you're gonna hear the state say that it could have been an overdose or something like that. That's why I think he bringing it out first to show any known drug use or what have you.
taken, how long was it until you heard anything about them finding her body?
Desde el momento en que Susana fue llevada, ¿cuánto tiempo pasó hasta que usted supo que encontraron el cuerpo de ella?
Entendí.
I didn't understand.
How long was it from when Susanna disappeared to when the police found her body?
¿Cuánto tiempo pasó desde el momento en que Susana desapareció hasta que la policía encontró su cuerpo?
Casi 7 meses.
Almost 7 months.
When did you find out that the police located her?
¿Usted cuándo se dio cuenta de que la policía la había localizado?
Right.
En
Ain't he?
febrero, no me acuerdo el día exacto, la fecha exacta.
In February. I don't remember the day exactly or the exact date.
And how did you find out?
¿Y cómo se dio cuenta?
Fue la detective Angela,
It was the
el sargento y otro.
It was the detective Angelique, the sergeant, and someone else.
So Detective Carter came, told you?
Her vino y le dijo?
Sí.
Yes.
What went through your mind at that moment when you heard?
¿Qué pasó por su mente en ese momento cuando escuchó?
I can't even imagine.
No quería eso. Yo no quería esa noticia.
I did not want that those news.
Yo la esperaba
I was waiting for her.
y la sigo esperando.
And I'm still waiting for her.
So sad.
Maria, would you like some water?
Yeah, I like some water. There's water right here.
It's okay.
Gracias.
Thank you.
But I think they're trying to show that if not overdose on the weed, but maybe she used some other drug.
How long do you remember? I'm asking different questions. When you
Let her
heard that
breathe.
the police had charged the defendant with the crimes, did you know him?
Cuando usted se enteró de que la policía había formalizado cargos en contra del acusado, ¿usted lo conocía?
No,
No.
Had you ever seen him before?
¿Alguna vez lo había visto?
no.
No.
Did your daughter, did Susanna ever mention to you or talk to you about the defendant?
¿Susana alguna vez se lo mencionó? ¿Habló con usted acerca del acusado?
No,
No.
During the period of time
Hey, Candy
before
Cane.
the police found Susanna, did you ever notice anybody outside of your home following you or parked in front of your home that was suspicious to you?
Durante el tiempo que estuvieron buscando el cuerpo de Susana o antes de eso, ¿usted alguna vez vio alguna persona o algo sospechoso hacia afuera de su casa?
todo se me hacía sospechoso.
Everything was suspicious.
Were you keeping an eye out, looking for things that might be suspicious?
¿Usted mantenía pendiente de cualquier cosa que fuera sospechosa?
Sí.
Yes.
Did you ever notice any black trucks parked in front of your home or around your home or following you?
¿Usted alguna vez notó camionetas negras estacionadas al frente de su casa, cerca de su casa o siguiéndola a usted?
Siguiendo no, pero rondando a veces sí.
Following me, no, but driving around, yes.
Driving around where?
No, pasaba a veces una troca, como que bajaba la velocidad. Una vez le dije yo a mi yerno y a mi hija, le digo yo, eso está sospechoso. Pues a mí yo siempre andaba así, como con desconfiando de todo.
It was one time, sometimes a truck would drive by and slow down. And one day I told my son-in-law and my daughter, I said, that's suspicious, but to me, everything was suspicious.
Maria, at this point, I think those are all the questions I have for you. Ms. Drake may have some for you, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Now,
His approach.
you know, this is what I more so expect a mother to do, right? I expect a mother to show up to court. I expect a mother to go through, you know, it's not easy for nobody. It's not easy for anyone in these type of situations, I can imagine, right? But you still, you suit up and you show up, you know? Yeah, let's listen to the defense questioning, and that way we'll be done with this first witness and opening statements tonight. About the drug deal, I think it just goes to show I think the defense may want to go try to show that the defendant used drugs, but it sounded like this girl was a good girl. In school, no babies, work at the same job with her mama. The only thing is, you can't never know what these kids gonna do. The best of the kids are sneaky sometimes. The only, and what's real sad to me is how you try to stay on top of things, right? The mama checking where she at. She calling her. She finna go pick up. It's just 10 minutes away. Boom. Just talked to her. Just seen her. Just called her. All this, and then bam, in a blink of an eye, she gone. The world is a scary, scary place, baby. Right. And then the daughter didn't think she was really doing nothing. Only thing she thought she was doing, the daughter, was going to her homegirl house that her mama didn't like. It ain't like she was going to the club, going to go do all kind of nefarious things. She just simply went to the girl house who her mama didn't like as much. 10 minutes away.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at this time, we're going to take our lunch break. I am going to ma'am, you are required to remain outside the courtroom until you.
Sus hijos.
Okay, cross-examination.
Sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you being here today. I just have a couple of questions to ask you, and then you can leave. You indicated that you did not approve of Kelly.
Usted indicó que usted no aprobaba a Kelly.
Why was that?
¿Por qué era eso?
Como lo dije al principio, hay ciertas amistades que a uno como madre, como padre no les gustan a vuestros hijos.
Like I said in the beginning, there's certain friendships that as parents, we just don't like for our children.
That's nice of her not to bad talk
And
that
you
girl.
had communicated that to your daughter, that she was not to hang around her.
¿Y usted le había comunicado eso a su hija, de que no debía pasar tiempo con ella?
Sí.
Yes.
When you called to make sure that she made it to Esmeralda's house, she texted you back, correct?
Cuando usted llamó para asegurarse de que ella había llegado a la casa de Esmeralda, ella le mandó un mensaje de texto de regreso, ¿correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
And she also told you in that same text that her phone was dying and didn't have a lot of power left.
Y en ese mismo mensaje de texto, ella también le dijo que el celular se le estaba muriendo y que no tenía mucha batería que le quedaba.
Sí.
Yes.
That night, when you called sometimes I cut Esmeralda short to Esme, but Esmeralda's mother, Esmeralda got on the phone as well, right?
Esa noche cuando usted habló con Esmeralda, a veces corto su nombre y solo digo Esme, esa noche cuando usted llamó a la mamá de Esmeralda, Esmeralda también estaba en el teléfono, ¿correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
And you later found out that Esmeralda knew where your daughter had gone.
Usted después se dio cuenta de que Esmeralda sabía dónde se había ido su hija.
Sí, en el día siguiente yo me di cuenta.
Yes, the next day I found out.
She did not tell you that night when you called at all.
Esa noche que usted la llamó, usted no supo eso.
De que no había ido a su casa, no supe esa noche.
That she had not gone to her house? No, I didn't find out that night.
I believe that the state asked you this question, so I apologize if you've already answered it.
Creo que el Estado ya le hizo esta pregunta, entonces le pido disculpas si ya la respondió.
Do you remember telling Detective Carter that you thought your daughter was addicted to pot?
¿Usted recuerda haberle dicho al detective Carter que usted pensaba que su hija era adicta a la marihuana?
No.
No?
Do you remember giving an interview on January the 17th of 2023?
¿Usted recuerda haber llevado a cabo una entrevista el 17 de enero del 2023?
No recuerdo las fechas exactas.
I don't remember the exact dates.
Would it help refresh your recollection if you had a chance to view that video?
¿Le ayudaría a refrescar su memoria si tuviera la oportunidad de ver ese video?
Hay muchos, no sé cuál sería.
There's many of them. I don't know which one it would be.
Okay, we'll take care of that later on. We'll just move on.
Adelante hacemos eso. Vamos a hacer.
Did you or your daughter, to your knowledge, find Susanna's diary?
¿Usted o su hija, hasta donde usted sabe, encontraron el diario de Susana?
Sí.
Yes.
Was that turned over to Detective Carter or another police officer?
¿Eso se le entregó al detective Carter o a otro oficial de la policía?
No.
No.
You stated earlier that Susanna never ran away.
Usted declaró anteriormente que Susana nunca huía de la casa.
But
Yes.
isn't it true that you told Detective Carter that sometimes she would run away?
Pero no es cierto que usted le dijo al detective Carter que ella a veces huía.
Nunca he oído. No.
She's never run away. No.
You don't remember saying that?
¿No
No
recuerda haber
recuerdo.
dicho eso?
No recuerdo.
I don't remember.
She would leave for extended periods of time when she got upset about something, though.
Ella se iba por periodos de tiempo largos a la vez cuando se molestaba por algo.
No, nunca.
No, never.
She never left the home.
Nunca
No.
salió de la casa.
Sí salía, pero con permiso.
She would leave, but with my permission.
And how again did you find out that she was smoking pot?
¿Y cómo fue que usted se dio cuenta una vez más que ella estaba fumando marihuana?
Me llamaron de la escuela.
I got a call from the school.
Did she get in trouble at school?
¿En la escuela se metió en problemas?
No, solo fumaron.
Just smoking.
She never got suspended from school?
¿Nunca la suspendieron de la
Sí,
escuela?
la suspendieron una vez.
Ma'am, I'm gonna ask you to wait until the interpreter gives you the question in Spanish and answer in Spanish. You're answering the English question, and I just want to make sure you completely understand the question. Okay.
I'm sorry, Judge.
Yeah,
You stated earlier that Susanna would always answer the phone if you called her.
Usted declaró anteriormente que Susana siempre le respondía al teléfono que usted la llamaba.
Sí.
Yes.
But she didn't answer multiple times prior to 10 o'clock that evening, correct?
Pero no contestó en múltiples ocasiones antes de las 10 de la noche de esa noche, ¿correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
Did she have a curfew?
Yo tenía un horario para estar en casa, ¿de qué?
Así, pero siempre le dejaba una hora más. No había un horario exacto que regresara,
Yes.
pero antes de las 11.
Yes, but there was not always. Sometimes I would allow her another extra time, but it was always before 11.
If I can have just a moment, please.
certainly.
Oh, I do have one more question. The black truck that you saw driving around, did you ever see the driver of that truck?
La camioneta negra que usted vio rondando o manejando por los alrededores, ¿usted alguna vez vio a la persona dentro de esa camioneta?
No.
No.
If I can have just a moment now,
Certainly.
please. Thank you, ma'am, very much. I appreciate you.
May we release this witness?
Baby, she ready to get the hell off that stand.
Under my subpoena as well, and I may recall her since she didn't remember some statements.
Tal vez vuelva a llamarla por lo que no
Stay in here.
Okay. Ma'am, you are not allowed to stay in the courtroom because you're still under subpoena. Okay, and don't talk to anyone about your testimony. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so this is where we're gonna stop at for tonight.
Sure.
The next testimony is gonna be from the sister. She getting out of there fast. Hush. So, Lady Steph said, "What's the point of these questions?" And I was thinking, I think it's hard to kind of feel like, damn, why they giving this a woman a hard time, or what point, what is she trying to say, or why they character assassinating the victim? And like we always say, the defense have to do their job, right? So I think because of and going off of what the defense said in opening, I think they trying to show or imply that Susanna had a tendency to do what she wanted to do or go places where she wasn't supposed to be, because the reason why I think they trying to show that is because they trying to say they said it's no telling who all car she had been in that night. The defense has said that. You know what I'm saying? And of course, the mama gonna make it seem like, at this point in time, this her daughter dead, deceased. So of course, you kind of pretty much like memorialize them, and you forget about those little bitty things, right? The little times they didn't wash the dishes, a couple of times when you had to take the phone, all of that shit seemed irrelevant at this point. At this point in time, when you think about the big picture, my child was a good child. My child didn't cause me no problems. When you in that position, I'm sure you can stand back from your situation right now and recognize that what you thought was a big deal yesterday don't mean nothing today. But I think the mother did a good job coming, showing up, holding it together, and saying, and just doing. This trial is going to be very interesting, you guys. It's some good witnesses, some good testimonies, some interesting facts gonna come out, some interesting previous dealings with the defendant gonna come out. I just feel like, and then it's also like a heart tugger. It's a heart tugger as mom. So is it safe to assume that the only thing that they are tying to this cop is his missing gun, or do they have other evidence against him? Well, according to what they said in the opening statement, they have the gun, they have the cell phone. The cell phone records from his phone shows him in the same proximity where the gun at, where the body was for hours. The phone thing supposed to show him going back to that area the next morning. He called in the gun missing the same day they called it and reported her missing. And then it's some other very interesting facts that's going to come out. Okay, now I watched this trial about a year and a half ago, or a year ago. And when I caught it, I didn't even know the trial was on or nothing like that. I don't even think they showed this on Court TV. I think I caught it on one of the Atlanta news channels, the one I'm planning off of now. And I'm gonna just say, when I started watching this trial, I got totally caught up, because it just made me ask so many questions, like why? You know what I'm saying? Like why would he do this? What's wrong with him? I think it was Miss Steph 219 said a psychopath, a sociopath, a psychopath. Let's not forget that in the opening statements, the state said the same day that they reported Susanna missing, the same day he called in his phone stolen, the same day, the day after, the full day after she came up missing, he went to a convenience store, asked to use the clerk phone, went into the world phone, into her pictures real quick, found naked pictures of her, and sent it to himself on his phone. He already doing and practicing sexual deviancy. Already, he is 23 years old at the time of this trial. What is wrong with him? Okay, so you guys don't be too mad at me about this. Well, y'all can be mad at me, but please find in y'all heart to forgive me, because I did bring the Murdoch trial to us. I just did not continue that, and I just made a judicial, executive, legislature, governmental, dictatorship, leadership decision to change the trial to this one. Okay, please forgive me. Please keep tuning in like y'all do. Please support like y'all do. And I promise y'all, before Wednesday, by the time Thursday night come, by the time we end this first week of trial, this new case, by Thursday, I promise y'all are going to be 100,000% full throttle in it. Y'all are going to be into this trial. Y'all are going to get invested. Y'all are going to be like, dang, we gotta wait till Monday. I promise y'all. It's a really good trial. Not boo, and I'm doing the prayers. Don't be encouraged her. Miss Steph, sorry about that. It's not the jury's fault. This ash blonde judge not giving us a break from the juveniles. I am going to give y'all a break. Lady Steph says, I'm glad that you made the executive decision to stop the trial. It was boring. I don't care what Winter says. Thank you. So, we're 8 minutes early. I'm going to go ahead and call it. A session. We are off to a good start. Tomorrow morning, I have such a interesting. I was doing work over the weekend, right? So tomorrow morning, y'all tune in. I'm 10:30 in the morning. Free them or keep them. I got a great episode coming for y'all tomorrow. I already got the backstory. I got the news clip. I got little interesting facts. Y'all tune in the morning for Free them or keep them. I guarantee you guys, you're going to like the new format. And just keep supporting like y'all do. Until we meet again, court is now adjourned. Good night. Yeah, I do need to throw them in. Well, I gotta get up early enough. Yeah, but I do need to throw those in again. I'm gonna try to get some in March. I might try to get some in the morning. Y'all know I went got back on I got my medication, so I've been going to bed on time the last couple of days anyway. All right, good night, y'all. Oh, and the question was, what trial did the defense use the same tactic where they said, you're not gonna like my client by the end of this trial? That was the Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme murder trial. That's what the little bulldog attorney said about his client. Talk about you wouldn't want her to come to dinner. Trick question. Good night, y'all.
Thanks for watching. Do not forget click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Like, comment and share. See you next time. Thanks for watching.